Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, Rosa Parks. They are just some of the few leaders of the civil rights movement. They marched, protested, and in Rosa's case, sat for equal rights during the 1960s. Many people who fought for equality during this time were arrested and some even killed for the cause. But before the civil rights movement began, 12 Oklahoma City firefighters were setting up the foundation for the protest to come just years later. The 1950s was commonly seen as the golden age of America. Rock and roll was born, cars were fast, and life was easy. But that wasn't necessarily true for everyone.
My knowledge of history of Oklahoma and this general area of the country, things probably hadn't progressed as much in terms of racial equality as maybe some other, the Northeast and other areas of the country at that point.
Equality wasn't at the forefront of social issues for most Americans in the 1950s. Schools, bathrooms, theaters, all plagued with segregation. However, the OKC Fire Department was one of the first to fight against segregation. In 1951, the Oklahoma City Fire Department needed money to fund operations. A vote for this money was made, but was subsequently shut down by the public.
So they were going before the voters to pass a bond issue for various infrastructure projects. My understanding of it is it wasn't entirely popular with the citizens, and they knew it. So the city was going out soliciting various citizens groups to get their support for this bond issue so that it would pass. Well, they went to the Urban League, and the Urban League heard them out and basically based their support on the city's agreement to integrate the police and fire departments.
The Urban League, a support group for minorities in Oklahoma City, and the fire department each made their own list of 12 potential applicants to be hired onto the fire department. What's interesting is, when they met back up, both the fire department and the Urban League chose the same 12 applicants independent of each other.
That is not a role or position that you expected to see an African American in that time frame. Again, the city was very sharply segregated. There were the white areas of town, and there was the black areas of town.
A lot of people forget that there are so many all-black towns in Oklahoma that didn't have fire departments, so they were able to go to the small towns and do training for the volunteer firefighters. So they had a lot of support, in spite of some of the things that happened.
Well, I guess I could tell you a story. Like, I remember if I went into the restroom, use the restroom, somebody come in and dump a bucket of water on you while you're using the restroom. Then you had to come back out there and change clothes and get into another uniform. If I go up the hose tower, we had a hose tower at Fire Station 15 at that time. Some of them would get on, turn the brush pump on, shoot water up there, up behind you, going up the hose tower to hang the fire hose, and just other different little games. Think about it, if you was on a job as serious as the fire department is, would you think you'd be playing a game? You're supposed to be a professional person, and would you want them playing games with you? Would you think that was a game? No, it wasn't a game.
The people that were training them thought they could break them. And so they put them through, all the most rigorous things that they could, thinking that, okay, we're going to break some of these men and they're not going to want to stay, with it. But all 12 who started finished and did really well.
They were very cognizant of the fact that they maybe had to prove themselves much more than the white firefighters did then. So to do that, they worked harder, they trained harder to not only gain the acceptance of the other firefighters on the department, but to prove that they were worthy of the positions that they were given.
One of those firefighters stood above the rest. Carl Holmes grew up in a segregated part of town where whites and blacks hardly saw each other. But segregation never stopped him from doing his best. Given his reputation, Holmes was a natural candidate for the fire department.
If you know anything about, I hate to say it, but black society in Oklahoma City, everybody knows everybody. And so when they decided it was time to integrate the fire department, his parents were contacted and said, hey, we think Carl would be great to be one of the people to integrate the fire department.
Over the years, Holmes rose through the ranks all the way to assistant fire chief, despite the challenges he encountered. However, in the face of overwhelming opposition, Holmes knew he had to prove himself.
Well, from the beginning, he was very aggressive as far as wanting to be the best at what he did. And that was very inspiring as well to me, because that's what he wanted to do. And he was always the best at what he was doing.
Holmes' drive to be the best was always one of his greatest qualities, which was something Marvella noticed when they first met.
How we met was he had a free ticket to a jazz festival. And one of my friends knew that he'd had this free ticket, and I didn't have one. And so we went by his house to pick up the free ticket. And so then he wanted my telephone number, of course, and I gave it to him. And then he started calling, and that's how we got closer together. And then he said, I'm gonna marry you. I said, I don't think so. But anyway, we did get married, and had a wedding, and so we had a beautiful life together. And the reason we had this beautiful life together is because of the fact that he was on the fire department, so he was gone every other day, right?
Now, even though Carl and Marvella's relationship was beautiful, it certainly wasn't without its conflicts. After Holmes' retirement, he came up with the Executive Development Institute, a program for educating firefighters. However, the lack of funding for EDI put Holmes in a financial dilemma.
But the thing about really got me furious was EDI. The reason that made me so angry at one time was the fact that he was wanting to get this together for the guys, okay? And during that time, getting this together, they had to have a little bit of money. So what he did was he took our money out of our savings account and put it into the EDI account, which I didn't know anything about it.
Holmes' investment was a huge risk to the family, but ultimately proved its worth.
Throughout the 60s into the 70s and so forth, increasingly African Americans were finding jobs within the fire service, but they would get on the fire department and they would just remain as firefighters. They wouldn't advance in rank.
Holmes recognized this problem from his own personal experience in the fire department. In order to right this injustice, Holmes started EDI to give other firefighters an opportunity to excel like he had.
So, again, not being satisfied with that and knowing that to be able to advance in rank on your department, that you had to increase your education, you had to take advantage of various training and career development programs. He kind of packaged that all up together in his institute, and you can see the impact that that's had across the nation as I've traveled about and get to meet chiefs from other departments, African American chiefs. A lot of them will bring up Chief Holmes and talk about that they were a participant or a student in the Institute at some point in their career, and that's what helped them advance in their own department.
While EDI was set up to increase the education of firefighters, it also built a national community for fire departments where problems and the solutions to those problems could be discussed on a national level.
EDI is basically a network of professionals from all across the country.
Everybody, when you come to EDI, you have a unique quality of telling different things that you experience on the job that you had in the part of the country you came from. And it helped educate you and help you and let you know that you weren't alone dealing with problems and racism and different things, challenges you had on the job at the particular department you came from.
So if I'm having a problem in Oklahoma City, that may be the same problem that's going through the full fire service, but it never got to Oklahoma City yet. It's still in New York. Well, I know how to deal with it prior to it even getting to me. So some of the awards that you see other people getting, some of the promotions that you see other people getting, they're from the knowledge that they got from that network, and they learned to deal with a problem before it was a problem in our city.
Finally, over the years, the money Holmes took from his own savings account to start EDI was showing its worth not only in the institute itself, but also in the firemen who attended his school.
Like I said, I came back. I got awards from the Kiwanis of Oklahoma City, the Key Club of Oklahoma City, made Firefighter of the Year here in Oklahoma City. And I say all of that and the different awards I have gotten here in the city, I credit that to EDI.
You know, it's really interesting. I worked with one of the firefighters that came years later because they brought in that original 12 in like 1951. And so you thought they brought in some more in 1952. It was more than 10 years before they brought in any more black firefighters. It might have been more like 15. I'd really have to go back and look. But they were so excited about that original 12. And they really left a legacy in that people knew about them because all those 12 men were part of the community. They went to their churches, you know, they were in their clubs and organizations, and so they all knew them. And so they, you know, imprinted the men that came later.
The legacy that Carl left and the first 12 all was just a legacy of excellence. You know, doing your best, being the best. It's basically, the fire department is like a fraternity. And it's a fraternity of people that are responsible, that are professional, that have integrity, that, you know, are dedicated, and excellence. You know, so again, we used to use an acronym of PRIDE. So yeah, professionalism, responsiveness, integrity, dedication, and excellence.
One, he's leaving a tremendous legacy for his grandchildren, his daughter, his family, and the next thing to that is that the people in the community, it's people in the community you will not see accomplish what he has accomplished. You'll see different things accomplished as far as coming up through the ranks, but you won't never see another Carl Holmes.
What Holmes and the original 12 did might be hard to live up to, but their standard of what a firefighter should be sets the bar for firefighters to come.
I think that gives you that example to follow, and then also gives you a responsibility to have other young men follow you. You know, you have an example, and now you have to be an example. Those 12, I believe there are 3 of them left, and as they pass on, it's our job to take up that mantle and now be the example for the other young men coming along behind us.
I want to thank him because, again, he was a true pioneer, and many of the firefighters on our department, I think, are better firefighters because of his example. He not only helped African American firefighters, but he helped all firefighters.
I thank you for your responsiveness to the need of the community. I thank you for your ability to lead, and I thank you for the legacy you left behind for us to follow.
I didn't know that we would make it this far. I didn't know that we would be together this long. And because I've seen so many others that separated in their lifetime, but he always wanted to make a go at it. Whatever was going on, if it was up and down, we continued on with our lives. And I just want to thank him for that. He's made a wonderful, wonderful husband to me. Really have.
What Holmes did for the Oklahoma City Fire Department and for African Americans has made a great impact nationwide. But Holmes says he didn't do it because he wanted to. He did it because he needed to. In the face of racial discrimination, and with all odds against Holmes, failure was not an option.
I see it as a responsibility that I must have to be able to drive yourself to deal with it. Damn what the odds are. You've got to be better than anything out there, period. If failure is your problem, you making that's a problem to you. You're allowing that to be the thing that's holding you back. You must be able to succeed, period. No ifs, ands, and bets about it. I don't give a damn what the odds are. That's just the way it goes. And if that's too tough for you, you're in the wrong business. It's that simple.